Now, I'm going to ask you to come back and read page 5 on your own. Let's go to page 6, Roman number 1, and that's where we're going to start reading. Okay? So Roman number 1 is introduction, letter A. Step 1, the process of reporting research begins with a purpose statement that identifies the variables being studied and the population to which they pertain. There are 3 common types of variables: independent variables, dependent variables, and control variables. So now let's read independent variables. Independent variables are those that are manipulated or selected by the researcher to cause, influence, or otherwise affect the outcome. Now there's a bullet point, and it says, to identify the independent variable or variables, ask yourself, what is the name of the theory or technique the researcher is using to cause change? Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to memorize that question. Realize that when you answer it, you have identified which variable? The independent variable. So memorize the bullet pointed question and realize that when you answer it, you will have identified the independent variable. And by the way, we're going to practice. We've got a sample question down here. We'll practice in just a moment. The second variable, dependent variable. Dependent variables are those that are affected or changed as a result of the manipulation of the independent variables. Bullet point. To determine the dependent variable, ask, what is the researcher attempting to measure or test? So what's the researcher attempting to measure or test? And when you answer that question, you will have identified the dependent variable. Number 3, control variables are possible confounding variables that the researcher attempts to hold constant so that their effects are canceled out or controlled for, such as demographic or background characteristics of the subjects of a study. And again, bullet point, to determine the control variables, ask what is the demographic or background information identified in the purpose statement. Now, there is a sample purpose statement there. It reads, the purpose of this study is to compare the relative effectiveness of behavior therapy versus physical therapy in reducing self-reported chronic lower back pain, CLBP, among adult males aged 40 to 60. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be quiet for about 60 seconds. And I'm going to ask you to ask those 3 questions and commit yourself to an answer. Now, I'm not going to call on anyone. This is not designed to embarrass you. I just ask you to commit to an answer for the learning process. So ask yourself the 3 questions. Okay, so what is the name of the theory or technique the researcher is using to cause change? Anybody want to venture a guess? Exactly. Behavior therapy versus physical therapy. It's exactly right. Now, the best possible answer might be worded comparing the relative effectiveness of behavior therapy versus physical therapy, but you have the heart of the right answer. Make sense? Okay. So now, what is the researcher attempting to measure? Exactly. Self-reported chronic lower back pain might be worded reducing self-reported chronic lower back pain. But once you've answered the question, you have the heart of the answer. All right, and what is the demographic or background information? Adult males age 40 to 60. Now, I know this sounds way too easy, but let me tell you about a workshop we were doing. I was doing one in Ohio, and we had a PhD in statistics sitting right here, front chair. Bow tie, pocket protector, and 5 pencils, okay? And when we got to this point, he broke up laughing, which was really out of character because out of 30 some odd people in the room, he had said nothing the whole time. And so when he started laughing, I thought, ooh, okay, wonder what he's going to say. He says, I teach statistics to PhD candidates, and they don't understand these things. I'm going to go teach them the questions. Okay? it can work for you if you let yourself do it. Okay?